Today we are stepping into history at the McGehee Montague Family Cemetery. And it's a little small spot that it's like so many little places, you know, that so many small towns have. It's unseen and forgotten, and most people don't even know it exists. And it's right off the main road. And I'm Tom, and this is Regina. And today we're going to explore this cemetery and see what we can learn from it. Sadly, a lot of these tombstones are in very poor condition, but these tombstones have been here for a long time. And if you do tracings on old tombstones like this, you can usually come up with something pretty legible as far as reading the inscriptions. And these are also on Find a Grave. It's a website dedicated to cemeteries, and you can read the inscriptions there.
We're trying to learn what we can from the different places we visit, and today at this location we discover why one of the main roads in this town, Greenwood, is called Montague Avenue. It's named for John Montague, who was a soldier during the American Revolution.
And one of the things I learned from the cemetery, and I'd actually learned this a long time ago because I visited here a long time ago. This is really close to where I grew up. And the first thing I noticed when reading the inscriptions on the tombstones, these people were born in Virginia. And I thought that was odd. And I just had always assumed that the people in the upstate of South Carolina, which is where we're at, migrated from Charleston to here. And some did. But it seems that the majority actually migrated from Virginia to here. And the reason for that is because they received land as part of their pensions for serving in the Revolutionary War.
John Montague's service in the Revolutionary War, what we have learned from SAR and DAR records, was that he served under General George Washington. He was actually injured by a British saber. He was hit in the arm and the forehead while defending General Washington, and he carried those scars for the rest of his life.
And he was actually a captain in the Virginia militia during that time. Another really interesting thing, Carr McGehee, and the McGehee family was actually the founders of the town of Greenwood. Right. Well, Carr McGehee was a member of Rock Presbyterian Church, and that church still exists today, and they're celebrating their 250th anniversary this year.
What little bit we know about John Montague was found in DAR, which is Daughters of the American Revolution, and SAR, Sons of the American Revolution, applications that his descendants submitted for membership. However, in 1905, his great-grandson, C.M. Calhoun, wrote an article in the state newspaper. He stated that his great-grandfather was tall and commanding and a pious member of the Episcopalian Church. He came here from Virginia to live in '96 near the Star Fort. However, when he was 80, he became very ill, and he came here to his daughter's home and died in September of 1831, where he was buried in this family cemetery. Today, you might note that he has two headstones. This first headstone is one of the older VA headstones. It's very common on the graves of American Revolution soldiers, War 1812, Union soldiers, Mexican War, Spanish-American War soldiers. He has a newer stone up front, which you may have seen in some of the pictures. That is the newer VA stone that is available now.
And one thing to note is all of these graves are facing to the east. And that was a very common Christian tradition, because the Bible tells us that the dead in Christ will rise first, and Christ is supposed to appear in the east.
History leads to some interesting finds, and we found a connection to the royal family right here in Greenwood. John Montague was the great-grandfather of Wallis Simpson. Wallis Simpson, for those who don't know about her, she was twice divorced, and Edward VII fell in love with her. However, being king, the Church of England did not approve of him marrying a divorced woman. So he gave up the kingdom to marry her. Thus his brother became king, and now his daughter, Queen Elizabeth, has been Queen of England for over 70 years.
And this is something else that anybody that has spent any time in historic cemeteries will recognize, and that's the tombstones and graves of infants and children. And there are a lot of them in these old cemeteries, and that's because infant mortality was very high back then. Matter of fact, life expectancy was really low. And we can learn from the past and apply that to the present, but we can also learn from what's happening in present times and apply that to the past to gain a little insight into what they dealt with. For example, we've got all the quarantines and pandemic going on now. These people, they would be shaking their heads and laughing at us with what they went through. They dealt with malaria, typhoid, dysentery, smallpox. It's very difficult for us to even imagine what they dealt with and how difficult times were then. But seeing the graves of these infants and realizing what we're dealing with and the disruption in our life from this pandemic, it should help get us have a little appreciation for what they dealt with then. I mean, they didn't even have antibiotics. So not only did they have to worry about the viral infections, but bacterial infections from a simple cut. They lived in a very different world than we live in now. I hope you enjoyed this step into history. And this just goes to show what you can learn from a simple, small spot in a small town. And every town has a spot just like this that you can learn something from.
If there's a spot that you would like us to visit and learn about and do a video on, comment below. Give the channel a subscribe, and if you like the video, give us a thumbs up.
Y'all have a good day, and God bless.